Hello and welcome back to another week in new genre books. Thanks for stopping by. We're always glad to have you here. My name is Amelia, and from Locus magazine, I'm about to tell you the top new science fiction, fantasy, and horror books being published the week of June 27th, 2023. Thank you to everyone who got us up to 1,000 subscribers. Thanks for spending some time with us. It means a lot. We appreciate you, and we read and reply to comments. Anyway, let's talk books. These are all the new books we know about that didn't exist before this week. I've got links for timing if you want to skip to your favorite category, be it science fiction, fantasy, or horror. Starting with science fiction books this week, we have 5 science fiction titles being published. From the Science Fiction Hall of Fame inductee Connie Willis, we saw The Road to Roswell, out from Del Rey in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a romantic comedy science fiction novel. A disbeliever at a UFO-themed wedding at Roswell gets abducted by an alien and falls for a fellow abductee, a con man who sells anti-abduction insurance. Connie Willis is the adorable and kind and funny author of Blackout, All Clear, and other books, and she's won so darn many Hugo and Nebula awards. From the interview with Willis in the June issue of Locus. I always say The Road to Roswell is a combination road trip alien abduction romantic comedy. It's not any one of those things, and it's all of those things. I wanted to write a book about Roswell and alien abduction and how ridiculous the whole idea is. The idea that totally advanced aliens would come to our neck of the woods is ridiculous. I always call Earth the Limon of the Milky Way. That doesn't mean anything to anyone who's not in Colorado, but Limon is this little town about 70 miles east of Denver. It's tiny, and it has a lot of motels because the roads close when there's a blizzard, and then people get stuck there. But a blizzard is the only reason anybody ever goes to Limon. Otherwise, why would you go there? Why would you come to Earth? We're not anywhere near the New York or the Tokyo of the Milky Way. We don't have anything special to offer. Maybe we're like last services for 150 light years? Yet, all the UFO people assume we're the center of the universe and that these aliens would be dying to come here? Next up from KB Wagers, we saw The Ghosts of Trappist, out from Harper Voyager US in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a military science fiction novel, the third in the Neo-G series, about the Near-Earth Orbital Guard. The crew of Zuma's Ghost prep for the boarding games, but mysterious voices, missing ships, and rogue AI programs complicate things. From the review in the June issue of Locus by Gary K. Wolfe. The 2 previous volumes focused largely on the crew of the Interceptor, Space Patrol, and Rescue Craft, Zuma's Ghost. But this one expands the cast of characters to include other Interceptor crews based in the Trappist system, where Earth's one extrasolar settlement has managed to successfully maintain itself. Ships have been going missing in the Trappist system, more ships than the usual hazards of mischance or navigation should account for. Worse, at least one of those ships has reappeared empty, with no evidence for what happened to its crew. This mystery is what's absorbing the professional attention of the Neo-G crews at Trappist, including Zuma's Ghost and Dread Treasure. Their personal attention is split between the traditional boarding games, where Neo-G crews compete in mental and physical challenges against the other uniformed services in a media spectacle, and their own, more metaphorical ghosts. From Neil Asher, we saw War Bodies, out from Tor in ebook. This is a science fiction novel. Long ago, the Cyberot left Earth to co-evolve with machines, now led by the powerful dictator Castron. Their old guard believes that machines should replace the physical body, but these beliefs are upended with the arrival of the human polity, and their presence ignites rebellion. From Emma Mieko Candon, we saw The Archive Undying, out from Tor.com in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a science fiction novel, first in the downworld sequence of giant robots, war machines, and AI gods run amok. Candon is also the author of Star Wars Visions, Ronin, a Japanese reimagining of the Star Wars mythology. From Aaron H. Arm, we saw The Artifice of Eternity, out from Cosmic Egg Books in trade paperback and ebook. This is a science fiction novel. war, corruption, overpopulation, climate change. When Earth reaches a tipping point, the world's wealthiest man decides to reboot civilization on another habitable planet. Gosh, where are the Control-Alt-Delete keys to reboot civilization? Deemed Project Exodus, the voyage includes 4,000 like-minded colonists, a political manifesto, and all the resources they can fit on their ship. Next up, horror. We have 3 titles in horror this week. From Sin Baylog, we saw You Won't Believe Me, out from Sourcebooks Fire in trade paperback and ebook. This is a young adult horror novel. Willow's a captive, restrained in a bed in the middle of a pandemic, and then the old lady who tends to her dies, and a mysterious boy frees her but warns of monsters outside. From Rin Chupeco, we saw Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of the Gravemother, out from Amulet in hardcover. This is a middle-grade horror novel inspired by Nickelodeon's Are You Afraid of the Dark? Everyone in Southridge knows about the legend of the Gravemother. They know how to leave offerings by the abandoned house she was supposedly murdered in to pacify her. They know better than to trespass on her property, but not everyone believes in the tale. From Jimmy Juliano, we saw Dead 11, out from Dutton in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a supernatural thriller/horror novel. On a creepy island where everyone has a strange obsession with the year 1994, a newcomer arrives, hoping to learn the truth about her son's death, but finds herself pulled deeper and deeper into the bizarrely insular community and their complicated rules, with strange rules where everyone has a strange obsession with 1994. There was a lot of great music in the 90s, though. Some amount of obsession is appropriate. Next up, fantasy, we have 4 titles this week. From R.J. Barker, we saw Gods of the Wyrdwood, out from Orbit US in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel, the first in the Forsaken trilogy. A forester has to choose between the forest and the fire god he once served, a choice that will change the world. From Heather Graham, we saw Whispers at Dusk, out from Mira in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a supernatural thriller/romance novel. 4 bodies have been discovered along Europe's riverbanks, placed with care, and completely drained of blood. Pinpricks on their throats indicate a slender murder weapon, but DNA found in the wounds suggests something far more sinister. Tasked with investigating, the FBI recruits agents Della Hamilton and Mason Carter to Blackbird, an international offshoot of the crew of hunters. If you want to catch a vampire killer, you need agents who can speak with the dead. From Amanda Linsmeier, we saw Starlings, out from Delacorte in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a YA feminist dark fantasy novel. In the wake of her father's death, a teen girl discovers a side of her family she didn't know existed and is pulled into a dark and ancient bargain she is next in line to fulfill. Sounds like someone needs a good lawyer. Like, how do you get out of an ancient bargain that you inherited? And which county do you file the paperwork in? From Lily Meade, we saw The Shadow Sister, out from Sourcebooks Fire in hardcover, trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult fantasy thriller novel. Sutton going missing is the worst thing to happen to Casey, to their family. She's trying to help find her sister, but Casey is furious. She knows Sutton is manipulative. Meanwhile, everyone paints a picture of her perfection. People don't look for missing black girls or half-black girls without believing there is an angel to be saved. Next up, collections, we have 2 titles this week. From Gene Wolfe, we saw The Dead Man and Other Horror Stories, out from Subterranean Press in hardcover. This is a collection of 28 darker stories from Wolfe, a chronological retrospective including 6 tales never previously collected. From the review in Locus by Gary K. Wolfe, horror fiction might not be the first thing to come to mind when considering the impressive career of the late Gene Wolfe, despite some genuinely chilling moments in his most famous novels, and a few oddities like An Evil Guest or The Sorcerer's House. But The Dead Man and Other Horror Stories sets out to make a case for his skills in this arena. The problem is that if we accept the common notion that horror fiction is characterized and even named by its effect on the reader, an idea going all the way back to Poe's unity of effect, then horror does a pretty weak job of containing Wolfe's imagination. Some of his most ardent advocates argue that he was always a literary rather than a genre writer, but that implies a distinction that Wolfe himself repeatedly rejected. The fact is that he knew perfectly well how and when to use horror. But to get back to that unity of effect problem, Wolfe's best stories never try to do only one thing. While we'll get our share of murderers, werewolves, vampires, ghouls, demons, soul suckers, shape-shifting aliens, even a leopard woman, a treacherous computer, and a one mean-ass crocodile, the stories they inhabit might be anything from fairy tale redactions to tone-perfect Victorian pastiches, deep space SF, or Christian parable. Next up from Sarah Tolmie, we saw Sacraments for the Unfit, out from Aqueduct Press in trade paperback. This is an original collection of 10 weird, pandemic-inspired stories and vignettes looking at ways people might choose to spend their days in various sorts of isolation and mystery. That wraps up this week. Thanks for spending some time with us. At Locus, we want to tell you everything relevant that's happening in the science fiction, fantasy, horror publishing space. We appreciate your eyes and ears and your likes and subscribes. Please do subscribe and turn notifications on so you know about this video when it goes up every week. This magazine and this YouTube channel are a labor of love. We are at Locus Mag or at Locus Magazine on most platforms. You can read more about the science fiction, fantasy, and horror field over at www.locusmag.com or support us on our Patreon. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Come back and see us again soon, and we'll be here next week with more new books.